There we go. Now we're live. I'm gonna
Okay,
light some Palo Santo.
great.
So what are you doing in Rio? That's really cool.
Well, I was here 20 years ago when I was a young little guy working on a cruise ship. And long story short, had some big changes that happened in my life then. And I was like, I want to go back when I'm more mature, when I can go on my own terms. Working on a cruise ship is, tight schedule. You only get to get out at certain points. And so here I am 20 years later, closing that circuit, this time with my beloved. And so it's been mostly for us just to enjoy, just to be in the sun. And of course, go to the big Christ the Redeemer statue. We just went yesterday for Equinox, which was really special. That for me was really the closing of the circuit. And yeah, just to be in the beauty of Brazil. That was
Wonderful. I've always wanted to go down there. It's on the bucket list. What's your
yeah.
favorite part about it so far?
Oh, to be honest, to be around the men are beautiful. The women are beautiful as well, but we're spending a lot of time on the gay beach, so it's just like, whoa. Wow.
Puts California to shame, doesn't
Oh my,
it?
yeah, just like really sweet hearts as well, and really kind. And um, yeah, I think that
Nice.
was the first thing that
Good
popped into
time
my
for some
head.
people watching.
Yeah. Yeah, because we were just in Asia for 6 months, so it was nice to come into a different culture. It was a little rough to come back into the United States to see and to feel the density of what's being held there currently, with everything that has gone on and everything that is currently going on. So it was really shocking to land back there and to see the prices and all that. So we are much more comfortable in third world countries, Rod and myself. So we're like, let's
Amazing.
go to where our money can go a little further, and people tend to be more connected, I find, in places where there isn't, a lot of money and a lot of things like that. So
Exactly. I always choose the third world countries for my holidays. I don't know. It just feels good to spend your money there and to help people and that sort of thing. Because there's a lot of people that are looking to fill accommodation. So, I mean, I went to Zanzibar a few times. I loved
hmm,
Zanzibar. I thought that was amazing. And it's just one of those things where you get, I don't know, you get closer to the people, I feel.
yeah, I find the walls are down a bit more.
Yeah.
Like there's just an openness, there's a fluidity. Of course, that can also be sometimes uncomfortable because people are also selling a lot of things. So there's a lot of like coming into your field asking you if you want this, want that. And so I say no a lot, which is where I'm bowing a lot or trying to find a sweet way to do it because I don't like to be in that like no kind of vibe in
Did you get
myself.
aggressive? In Egypt, they like chase you down.
You have to
Egypt,
be
they get very
aggressive
aggressive.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to make you huge. I want you to take up the whole
There you
screen.
go.
So I can,
And
okay,
you can
there
see
you
the
are.
comments, right? If you click the comments there, you can see people
Yeah.
commenting. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Let's see.
How's
Can I
it
check?
going?
Yeah. Good morning.
Catherine
No.
says she loves your travel photos.
Oh. Yeah, we haven't taken as many photos this time. I think we haven't, it's not so much of a sacred site trip for us. A lot of the times when we're doing these big trips, we're going to, the old sites and feeling into the history and all that. This one has been much more of a pleasure trip and laying on the beach and eating nice food and sleeping late. And
Nice. Treat
um,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's been
very
really good.
nice.
The dreams,
Laura
though, have been
Pavanelli's
awful.
here. Hi, Laura. Laura says she finished the second part of the Illumination Codex. Amazing work.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was thinking about that. So I worked on that book for like 6 years or something like that, and I poured so much into it. I think the number one prayer and intention behind that text was, what are people going to need as we move, down this line? I think I also kind of felt that it was a continuation of the three waves of volunteers in the new earth, like a second edition kind of vibe to it. Like we got this like prophetic, they're coming, we're showing up, and then 20 years had passed really since that text had been put out. So 20 years, I think. So I think people will really enjoy it if you haven't had a chance to look into it yet.
Three Waves of Volunteers is one of my favorite books. I felt like I was reading about myself when I was reading that book, and it's just for starseeds and light workers, these sort of things are just priceless for us to tap into and get a deeper understanding. What is your favorite part about it?
Well, I would say the Jesus material is really revolutionary. There's, I don't know, let's say 15 or more transcripts of people, and long ones too. When I would find somebody that would give a clear storyline in their illuminated quantum healing session, that's what we call our method. Then I would work with them several times. Like one of the women that came through with the Mary Magdalene storyline, her higher self said right at the beginning we were going to work together 6 times. And so over a period of like 6 months, we worked together, and we went through like kind of like year after year of Mary's life to see significant moments. And there's some really incredible things there. There's some really revolutionary information about the children of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, like stories of them being trained in Qumran and what their education was like, really advanced psychic development, weather control, psychic weather control, things like working with animals, things like this, like young children, still quite innocent and in their wonder is probably what made them so open to learn, part of the reason why. So I really love that. And then the New Earth stuff, I think, is really exciting for people, especially in a time of, which is also going to segue me into my next area of research. But at this time where there's prophecy, there's fearful projection, there's how far is this going to go? How is this going to play out kind of thing? There's a lot of fear and trepidation in people. And so I think the New Earth storyline, what do I even call that? The New Earth. So the codex is broken into 6 volumes, or 6 gateways, I call them, like different ways to enter into the material depending on what you're interested in. And so the New Earth information is going to give a really inspiring and hopeful and empowering future timeline progression. Of course, anything that's coming with the future is probability. There's so many ways that things could play out. But I think the storylines are quite detailed, talking about inner Earth integration, beings coming up from inner Earth, what it will be like as other civilizations and humans are in conscious contact, and what that development is going to look like. So I think that's really inspiring and hopeful for people, especially if somebody's only used to watching what the collective is talking about, or what religion has talked about, or what one's own fear has conjured up in their own mind. I think reading that section is just really going to help the nervous system settle and put a positive focus on one's vision for the future.
Yeah. It has not been easy to be a light worker or a starseed down here doing this hard work. And so being able to see that you're not alone and that there's other people who are here with the same mission is often very comforting, I guess is the best way I could put it.
Yeah, and as you're bringing that up, it's last night, and I don't know that I have ever had this feeling, because I've seen people that call themselves starseeds or light workers or whatever word people want to put onto that, talking about how difficult it's been or how exhausted they are, and I haven't quite felt that. I think I've been kind of like on mission on this planet for such a long time. It's kind of my central impulse is like, what can I do to come down there to assist and help things evolve? But last night was a rough night for me. I was laying there in bed and just feeling like, shit, I'm exhausted. I don't know if there's anything else I can do. I don't know if there's how much more promoting or like being in that in the drive, to do that. I'm ready for the next thing. So I totally relate to so many of you who have felt just like, when are they going to push the button? When's the next thing? When do we go into what we can see as a tangible New Earth beginning to come up? So
I think that would be ET contact. That's kind of what I have in my mind. You know what I mean? Where the New Earth is that we realize we aren't actually alone down here.
Yeah, and I think also it's really taxing to live in a world where people live in a different reality. or where the drama of the collapsing of things is seen in a certain lens, like the awakened community is not seeing it the same way as other people are seeing it, and it's exhausting to be in a world where most of the people are seeing that. It's like you have to constantly remind yourself to be vigilant, or to trust yourself, or that you're not crazy, or not that I'm not feeling like I'm crazy, but I have to just kind of like keep the mantra alive in my head so that I can stay sharp and focused in a world that's, you know, still sleeping and still in their thing. So I can really relate to a lot of people that are feeling exhausted by the whole thing.
When people come to you for hypnosis, what do they normally find out about the changes that are coming?
Let me feel into that. I think when people come to me for an illuminated quantum healing session, well, things have shifted as well, because the way that I have been facilitating has changed. We just developed a completely new method that's very different than the process that's out there, like the standard quantum healing process. So, and it's not so well, I can get into that in a minute, but I think the number one message that's coming out for people is to really trust themselves, and to really know that we have prepared for many, many lifetimes, some of us on many, many planets, where this is the thing that we come in to do. It's like we've been around societal collapse many times. We have seeded new ideas many times, so that there's something within us that is so refined in its capacity to move through this with a lot of grace and a lot of confidence. So I feel that's the message that comes through a lot, is to really trust oneself. And by trusting oneself, one first needs to find out who they are at a deeper level, and to trust that deep identity that is beyond, you know, this body and all that kind of stuff. But we're doing now the illuminated quantum healing recalibration method is the one that I'm really focusing on right now. And that kind of the ideas came to me in several different ways of how to adapt and evolve the method. You know, people were complaining about it's taking so much time. 5 hours is a long time. Some people were doing 6-hour sessions, 7-hour sessions. I wasn't doing that. I got it down to 5. Then I shortened it a little bit more, the shorter interview process. We call that the focus sessions. But the recalibration method focuses really on core wounds, the core inner child issues that are going on for people. I mean, there's a lot of work that can be done and is really important to do with past lives. And yet there's this, I find people having a hard time looking at their childhood, or revisiting those really difficult times where that past life karma was reinvigorated in this life. Or relationships with the mother and father. People can think about, yeah, I lived in Atlantis, but I don't want to think about my mom or my dad. And that right there is a sign that
that's the important stuff we need to be working on, you know?
Yeah.
We want, that is a big thing we've noticed. There's a lot of people, like when we are doing something cool, you get more people coming in than you were for the people who were actually doing the shadow work. And we have noticed it's harder to lure people in with the shadow work because it's uncomfortable. It's not an easy thing to do. And many of us have been burying stuff for decades.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like picking at old wounds and bringing them back to the surface. And a lot of people don't see the point in that, but all of that is still there. Yeah. It's affecting us on a deep subconscious level. So yeah, it's very important.
I hear you as well on the, you know, it's hard to look at painful things. And so much of our mind doesn't want to. It's how the mind stays resilient in a lot of ways. And so in the way that we're working with the inner child and the recalibration methods, it is actually very fun. If any of you have ever spent time next to a child that doesn't feel okay, that's wounded, or is acting out in a certain way, we have so much patience a lot of times. I mean, depending on how we were raised, that can really affect how we handle, you know, a child that's acting out. But we have so much patience and so much curiosity with these young ones, and help them out of it. And that's a similar approach to how we're doing it in recalibration methods, where the person that's under hypnosis is actually meeting their inner child from that place of compassion, having a dialogue, seeing them, seeing what they need, and helping them to soften and to relax and to release whatever that they might need to be releasing. I mean, we can think of those holding patterns, the habitual patterns that we get into when our stuff is activated. And people see the inner child in these scenes in those postures, protecting, being defiant, those kinds of things. And when we can help the inner child soften and then integrate it, then those holding patterns release on our own body. One of the fun things about this process is then we do progressive hypnosis. We move into the future. We have people go into the most embodied expression of that wisdom so they can see themselves in, because I think that's also something that's kind of, is the word amorphic, like where people are like, oh, I know when my inner child's happy, I'll be free. But to actually see it, to feel it, to build up a multi-sensory template for it, and to bring it into your body right now is like, it just accelerates it so quickly. So we're working with the future self. We're seeing what the future self looks like when they're living in their own paradise that they've created, and then downloading that into the body. These sessions are lasting about an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's rapid, it's quick. It's a more advanced, oh, you're frozen a little bit. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's advanced in terms of the facilitation, because the way that we're training, we just had our first group of, I think Danielle is on here. We just had our first group of people that went through that first training. We give a ton of tools. So it's not just like a one script that you follow and you do that. There is a structure to follow, but depending on what evolves in the session, what clients are seeing, the practitioner could guide it in a couple different directions. So the practitioners are given multiple scenarios that they can work with, and depending on what they're receiving intuitively, they can craft the session while it's happening. So it is like wizardry. It's like quantum wizardry. It's just kind of like moving it around and feeling into it and co-creating a scene together. It's really special. I think people will enjoy it.
That's amazing. There's a lot of different types of healing work that kind of tries to have you envision your better self, your what's the word? Your true potential, I should say. And so to actually be able to visit that and see that for themselves must be so inspiring.
There's another element to it as well, yes, to this, and we even have clients project their consciousness into other people that are in the scenes so that they can see what other people see them like and how they feel them when they're in that embodied expression. So they're getting, whether that be, it's so fun. And like I had one woman, she's an incredible channel, where the intonation even changed. Like she was in a future scene where a really rapid transformation had happened in humanity, really accelerated evolution for the light workers, if you want to call us that. And so people were traveling to her from all over because they'd heard about this incredible woman that was doing healings and teaching these incredible things. And so this audience had formed around her while she was doing her work. And I asked her to project her consciousness into one of the audience members so that she could feel it and sense it, what it's like to be there and to see her. And the intonation changed, the posture changed, like it was clearly she was channeling a different thread of consciousness and describing it. It was really, really incredible. I mean, one of the cool things that's going to happen, is starting to happen in a little way, but it's going to explode, is this ability to project our consciousness non-locally. We're in this body now, and we can see this current time and space, but we can also project our consciousness into any object in this room and to feel what it's like to be inside that object, or to see what that object feels when it's sitting next to you. We're not limited to just this one body. So I worked with that idea. We explore it in these sessions of, what information can we get from another perspective of another, part of reality in that same space. And the information is really, really interesting.
Usually we have to wait for the life review process for that, because a lot of people know we go through the life review where you re-experience your life over again in a flash. But then we see our perspective, we see ourselves from the perspective of everybody we've ever interacted with. And that part doesn't get discussed very often, because that's where most of the karmic stuff comes from, because we see, oh wow, I handled that pretty badly. Oh, I wish I had changed that. I had done things differently. Especially when you see how you've made other people feel, when you've put, your shoes on their feet and vice versa. So
Yeah.
you really do have a much deeper perspective as to what we need to work on through that. And so the fact that you're able to do that without even going through the death experience is so cool.
Thank you so much. And it's interesting I like that you're bringing that up, because that's the next area of my research I've been diving into the last probably 2 months, or more than that. But I started having Anubis came to me in a meditation and shared with, and I just had a session with somebody a few days before where they told me that one of my guides from Orion wanted to start working with me. Then Anubis shows up visually in a meditation. And even like last night, I was watching TV here in Brazil. I mean, it's in Portuguese, and a guy comes on TV and he has Anubis on his shoulder. So I've been investigating the postmortem process. What happens after we start to slip out of this body? And that took me into the Buddhist practices. There's a whole rich culture of remembering death and using that as a practice throughout your life to free your consciousness from fear of change, fear of death, and to really embrace life and get the most out of life that you can. And I've started to experiment also with that in my hypnosis sessions as well. Like typically, well, one of the ways that it could be done, I know like Dolores didn't want people to go to the end, to the last day of their life, and I still don't do that. But I take people into an imaginative situation where life had gone very, very well, and they were the perfect age to transition and to experience what life would be like. Because I think a lot of people have a fear of death. I know I'm working on refining mine. I've had a few different experiences in my life that have helped me to shed that very quickly. But so when people get to go into an imaginative space and imagine what death would be like and imagine what their thoughts would be like, they can completely reframe the way that they live their life. Meaning, for example, I have this woman that I was working with in a longer IQH session. She had a number of health issues, mental health issues, physical health issues for a number of years. And so for her, she didn't envision the end of her life to be a very happy thing. She thought it was going to feel pretty miserable, and that she was going to be, trapped in a body that wasn't well. So through the work and through the imagination, she was actually able to create a new template for how she thinks the end of her life is going to go. That it doesn't have to be heavy and scary. She can actually look forward to it. So I'm starting to go into this area of research, and I think it's pretty exciting. I'm going to have more information coming out about it. I thought I would wait until equinox, since it's like a new year and new life. It's a great time to talk about death and dying. So yeah, more is coming out.
I think most people are just afraid of the unknown, and that's the big thing, is that death, so many of us, for many years for myself, was, even though I could see ghosts, I still didn't really know what to believe about the afterlife, because there's so many misconceptions and twists and things in religion. And so I really do feel like much about the fear of death is actually going to start slipping away, because as religions start to be exposed for what they are, I feel a lot of people are finding that spirituality has better answers.
Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, there's so much, it's such a double-edged sword. I mean, religion is so powerful and beautiful for so many people, and so empowering, and has given them answers and something higher to look forward to, and to connect with, something beyond themselves. And then there's also the shadow aspect of it, of creating
fear of going to hell. So many souls don't even cross over for fear that the light they see is actually their ticket to hell.
Yeah. And even create their hell once they're in the astral plane for a period of time, because they think that's where they're going, or they're not worthy. I had one session, it was unique. I had asked about, the hell thing a few times, and there didn't seem to be, obviously they're not, saying it exists in the way that we think that it does in terms of it being a sentence. But if a person holds that in their consciousness throughout their life, and they think that they could go to hell and they need to be punished and all that kind of stuff, that they could create that space for themselves temporarily when they're moving through the astral plane. And one of the, like, this being, the soul was walking past a building. She's like, that's where all of the people are that feel like they should be in hell. They can come out whenever they want. We walk by the building every once in a while and yell at them, you know, that they can come out, but they're going through their process, they're in their thing, and we just kind of let them be there. And I thought that was really gracious, that even, you know, free will at that level is, even if you want to create suffering for yourself, you can. We'll pray for you, but you're welcome.
Well, we found that people are, you know, how we plan certain experiences for ourselves while we're alive. We've also found that people have karmic experiences for when they're dead too, that they plan to spend time as an earthbound to learn from that experience.
Mm-hmm. That totally makes sense. And how rich. I mean, that's so incredible to be such a powerful being and to choose to experience complete powerlessness and enslavement and fear. And I'm sure on one level it's a riveting, nail biting, like, sure, I'd love to try that, kind of like a it's the same thing of like wanting to be human. Yeah, I'd love to be like that for a bit of time. Just what is that like to be so disconnected?
I wish I could see the brochure that they were handing out. You know? Come to Earth, we need your help. You know, it's like, I think they left some stuff out.
Oh my God, they sell packages like on the way into incarnation. There's people with signs like doing little dances for your postmortem package.
Oh man, and it's so funny too, because if you think about all the souls that want to come down here but are waiting right now because there's not enough bodies too. So it's like there's so many souls that want to come down here to learn. I really do feel like this is actually like prime real estate, you know, like even though many of us were like, no, when we came down here, you know, once we're down here, we're like, you know, it could have been worse. There's worse planets out there. Mars isn't very nice either, you know, like at least we got good food down here.
I sometimes joke with people, like, there's kind of like these guilty pleasures of like having a donut or a Starbucks coffee or something like that. And I'm like, well, enjoy it. There's not going to be those things for much longer. You might as well enjoy your Starbucks.
I'm hearing that a lot from the guides, by the way. The guides are telling me that quite a bit. Like, enjoy your Starbucks while it lasts, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, but I don't even like that stuff in most of the cases anyway. But at the same time, it's like, who knows how things are going to evolve in the near future, because things are changing. Like, by the time I wake up, the world is different, like every day.
Yeah. I want to know how your dreams have been.
Intense.
Like last night was probably the most intense dream experience.
I wake up sweating almost every night.
Same. And last night it was the first time I had like Inception style dreaming, like dream inside a dream inside a dream. Like I had
those are fun.
These really intense situations going on, and I thought that I like woke myself up and like went to go get like to tell Ron to like I needed more cuddling and more like warmth so I could, but even that was a dream. And I eventually had to like kick myself out of it. And I was like, what is going on? like, am I awake now? Like, what's happening? Really
technically, I don't know. That makes you wonder if we are technically awake now. Because a lot of people say that true life actually starts when you die too. It really is, depending on your perspective.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Because if you think about it, you're just swapping one vessel for another, and you're in a physical body, yeah, but you also have your light body. And most of us do spend quite a lot of time in the astral with our families and friends, and the astral is a really cool place, especially the high astral, because you have whole communities over there.
Mm-hmm. I was reading, because I know you had enjoyed some of the Theosophical Society literature. I've been reading a lot of different things. There's incredible PDFs out there of some of these texts, and this one in particular was written by a man who had a near-death experience. He was a Theosophical Society member, so he had all of that languaging there behind it, but also his own experience from having a near-death experience. And I loved, so he was talking about this progression through the astral plane, like this process of, shedding those lower carnal emotions and slowly moving up, kind of like through
Are
different
you
dream
talking about
states.
Leadbeater? Is that
It
who you're
wasn't
talking
Red
about?
Beater. It was somebody else that I've never heard. I don't even remember his
Now
name
I'm
right now.
curious. I want to know. You have to
I'll,
let me know
I'll,
because I want to read
I'll
more.
send you the, yeah, it's really interesting because he was even describing like upper astral plane of like heaven-like realities, like what people think they imagine their heaven to be like, or especially like very religious folks. And they could be sitting and listening to the most beautiful, what do they call those things at church? When you sermon,
Hymns.
like people could be
Oh,
giving these incredible sermons, but then something is off. Maybe water starts to leak through the roof, or the paint's peeling off the wall, or so they even start to have even their idea of what the heaven could be like starts to be like, oh well, maybe there's more. Actually, maybe something's off about this as well, and maybe I should let go of that idea even. And that through that final release of even its highest ideal, of what being a good person might look like, and the identity that's built around being a good person, even that starts to be released, and that opens up to a higher level of love, so they can make their transition into the mental plane. I thought that was so interesting because I look at the astral plane progression, like the postmortem process is, I mean, we're going through it now as a physical being, releasing those carnal desires, changing our identity, releasing our ideas of love and being acceptable, to the point that it's so abstract and so impersonal that we can actually, fully awaken while being alive. And that progression can help us have a quicker astral experience so that we can awaken, not have to go through all those what seem to be pretty intense or scary experiences for people. Because in the Theosophical Society literature, they even discuss that once a person has developed their consciousness enough while living, that the astral plane experience kind of, they don't awaken in it. They awaken in the higher plane, the mental plane. They don't have to go through all the struggles and the trials that are happening there. And even more, why I'm doing this research now with the death contemplation stuff is, you can prepare yourself for a better afterlife, not in the religious way, but by refining one's own consciousness and one's own identity now, so that you can take the speed bullet train up into the instead of the slow, clunky, scary ride that we hear about in some of these experiences.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what enlightenment is all about. It's making your soul lighter so that you're not bringing all this baggage with you. And I think one of the biggest things that really helped me shift my perception when it came to the astral was, I forget who said it, but they were basically explaining that you are not in your body, that you are sending your consciousness from the higher realms. You're still in heaven right now.
Yeah.
It's just that
Yeah.
you're sending your consciousness down to your receiver that's been developed, created for you to be the perfect connection between your soul and and your physicalness. But all of this is really you're like a drone operator, because your body is not you. It's just a part of yourself that you created through consciousness, yes, but it's not the actual you. And so you're just sending your signal from the higher realms down into this physical body. And when you realize that, it's easier to send your consciousness back to the higher realms.
Mm-hmm. This is making, because I've been diving into the research there with this as well. I wanted to ask your opinion on this, and if this was part of your training. So I was really curious about the process. I understand that the higher self remains in the higher planes and projects rays of its consciousness down. I wanted to know how the bodies were being formed, like what's the process of actually forming the vessels as coming down. And that took me into the skandhas, which is coming from the Buddhist tradition of, it's kind of like these core atoms of the different bodies. So you have your, the higher ones. Let's talk about astral, and then the physical with mental atoms. As the body starts to decompose, the physical body, there's a physical atom that retains all the information, all the consolidated information. At the astral plane, as the astral body consolidates, there's an atom there. These atoms remain at the threshold between the mental plane, called the heavenly planes, if you will, and the astral, waiting for when that consciousness wants to incarnate again. So those atoms start to reconfigure the next forms. And what I was reading about, which was really interesting, was entity attachments that are actually old skandhas, these old atoms from old personalities that might get attached to a person if they've developed a completely new personality structure. Because I had some beings that I had to thank and send in a different direction once I realized they were around me, and I started to wonder were they actually personalities of mine from other incarnations, that are kind of like debris from other incarnations that were attracted to the familiarity of me. And what was being talked about in the text is there are ways for them to kind of almost like incarnate by connecting to. Is this making sense? What I'm saying, it's a really abstract concept.
Well, it depends on how you look at it, because everything is everything. Everything is all one. We're all source to a degree. So it really just, everything is just an illusion when it comes to separation. There is no separation between anything, whether it's, you know what I mean, an atom in one person versus an atom on another person on a completely other side of the world. They're still from the same source, the same energetic source. So, but one of the interesting things we've discovered too is that a lot of past life energetic resonances are still sticking around, where people are bringing their injuries from a past life. And it's not just their injuries, though. Like, for example, if somebody was paralyzed in a past life, they may have numbness in this lifetime and wonder why. Well, it's because you're still holding on to the idea, the energy of that injury. But now we've also noticed that there are personalities that are also kept. Like, one of the clients that I cleared last week was a very famous composer who was writing music and was absolutely adored in that lifetime. So in this lifetime, she's expecting adoration from people. And the soul guides are like, well, this is why she wants to be adored, is because in her previous life, she was adored by absolutely everybody. Yeah. So when you come into this life with that ego mindset, you know what I mean? It makes you kind of a show off in a way. And then you wonder why you have that personality trait. And it's like, well, you brought that with you.
We have these two training tracks that we have in our, what we call the Multiversity. It's a school of ours that we've created. One of them is the facilitator track, evolutionary facilitator track. And all of our facilitators that learn our different methods in this program dive deep into esoteric psychology. And I've started to develop an idea within that psychology module called quantum parts psychology. Part psychology in modern psychology is like having the inner child, having the inner parent. So we have these kind of like autonomous personalities in our field that activate at different times to help with, different situations. They're triggered into action. They have likes, dislikes, preferences, all that kind of, their own humor. But when I started to study the quantum world, I was like, wow, well, past lives also are parts that are kind of oscillating in our field and get activated at different times. So we call this quantum part psychology, where some aspect with unresolved, unrefined things from past lives kicks on sometimes, such as somebody that was adored in a past life and they're still wanting that attention. It kicks on. And so when we're doing regression, we're working with these quantum parts. We're helping those parts find their resolve, to neutralize, to integrate, so that the person can be whole. So they're not pulled into situations, triggered into situations, and what you could consider an inappropriate response to certain things, where you're extra angry about something. Where'd that come from? Well, it's coming from one of these quantum parts.
We need to work on stuff. Exactly. Those are actually really good, like a blip in the radar when there's something that you need to work on. So yeah, those are important.
I think this is going to, once more of the world starts to turn around and realize that the woo-woo that everyone's talking about actually has some depth to it and can actually, help bypass a lot of suffering. especially when you start to see that these things are discussed in great detail in the occult literature of different traditions, where it's not just like a new idea that somebody came up with. There's a long history and a long science that stands behind these concepts. And I think
Theosophical Society is a great example of that. I mean, for the last 150 years, they've been publishing content and getting people to come together and learn. And I'm sure back in the day, it was even crazier. Imagine the Victorian era and how, I mean, when the Theosophical Society was at its biggest, how many people were coming together. They were using Ouija boards and seances and stuff yet too, but they were also using a lot of hypnosis and a lot of astral travel. Those books by C.W. Leadbeater are astounding when they're talking about the astral planes and its inhabitants. Like, and that's a 120-year-old book. Amazing.
I think also because they didn't have the phone, they didn't have TVs and things, so they really had to sit and be imaginative.
Your Ouija board was the TV.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, now people our consciousness is so scattered and splintered out with all the different technology that we have and that's available. And I think that was such a radiant time for consciousness. I mean, it can seem dark, but I think there was a lot. We just weren't so spread out, and those that were dedicated could really accelerate pretty quickly because it was entertaining as well to meditate. Now entertainment is watching TV or getting on YouTube or something. But let's see what else is going on here. Very cool.
You had a good question a second ago that I want to scroll up to. Where is it? Lucy said, I just came out of a guided meditation and I met a new guide, I think, and he said something that reminded me of Hitler, and I asked why. I always think about him. I randomly get thoughts or pictures of him in my head and have had some dreams about him, and then this guide said that he is one of my guides. Could this be true, as Dolores Cannon talked about Hitler being in the learning portion of the plane for quiet reflection? Any thoughts? Interesting.
When it's characters like that have so much stuff around them, like drama and things like that, I would always just use more discernment around that. Spend some time entertaining the idea, investigating, refining, and noticing the difference between that telepathic conversation that you have and a loving, sweet, trustworthy friend that you talk with, and notice how you feel in comparison to those two. I think with all those kinds of things, especially right now with guides, with so many people realizing that what they thought were their guides might actually not be that, and that these beings that might be offering guidance have different levels of self-interest.
And also, I do think that a lot of us are healing with these past life stuff. So it could possibly be that they are like Holocaust victims in a past life that are trying to heal from that. And you know what I mean? When you're confronting the person that caused so much suffering in the past and trying to, because a lot of these souls that cause the biggest problems here on earth are fulfilling a role that they chose, that they were given. It's kind of like Voldemort, for example, you know what I mean, being this big scary character on the TV, but then in real life the actor that plays him is a really decent guy. So it's a lot like that with souls too.
Yeah, I think anytime physical or non-physical, like I had a woman once that told me that she was my guide on the higher planes, that she's an embodied form of it, and I was just like, if a person told me that, I would be super skeptical. If they just went out and said, I'm your guide, there's something for me that's a little bit like, I don't know about that. Let me feel into that. And I think when it comes with non-physical beings, even more reason to be very discerning, with love, of course.
Always ask, are they from the highest light and serving the highest good of humanity? We always ask that 3 times. And unfortunately, we've learned that imposter soul guides are quite a big deal these days, so that many beings are masquerading as soul guides to try and confuse people. So we do have to be very vigilant with this right now. And because anybody can say they're anybody, where you basically you can change your appearance in the astral and people can lie about who they actually are. So it is very important to have that discernment you were talking about. Absolutely.
I feel to put some, I had like a list of links. Can I put that in the chat just so that I don't forget about it before we
If
get
you
out?
send it to me on Facebook, and that way I will be able to copy and paste it across all the different channels.
Okay, great. I'm going to send that right now. It's just a list of links. There's no descriptions with them.
Perfect.
Very good.
Cool.
Let's see here. Well, I know we've discussed the book. I want to also mention, because I know that some people have looked at it. The book is like 800 pages. It's really big. It has has so much of what we've been discussing that's in it. But I've also broken it down into these smaller volumes, like pocket size. Here in my suitcase. I can't get them right now, but I know some people were a little bit like, ah, it's a huge book. I don't know if I should get that. But I heard that, that concern, and I made some smaller ones. And I really want to recommend, if you liked the Jesus stuff that we were talking about, or the New Earth transmissions, that you can get that in a nice pocket-sized version for yourself. My partner also created a book called The Songs of Remembering, which is just a one client that he worked with over a number of years, which is really, really incredible information discussing the designers, like these very high light beings that use sound and vibration to weave together the matrix of this reality that we're experiencing ourselves through. Also going into like these beings at different times in history, incarnating to build the pyramids, or to, after the nuclear explosion, to come down on the earth to be like, what's going on here, to kind of check it out and notice like what they needed to do to start helping the situation get better. So if you're interested in that type of extraterrestrial information and higher dimensional stuff, Ron's book is really, really, really unique. Talking about also like mer people from other planets, and how they used interdimensional portals to come to the ocean of Earth to start to weave songs into the oceans and to refine the oceans through song transmissions.
Wow.
So I think it's it's different material. It's similar in ways, but I think you'll also enjoy that. It's called the Songs of Remembering.
We do love the mermaid stuff. We must admit, when it comes to, because so many of us have memories of being beings like this, most of us have not always been human. And so there's been a lot of new developments when it comes to understanding that these beings are all real and that we have had experience as them. And I wonder, for somebody that's never had a hypnosis session, what would you recommend for them for having probably expectations? Keeping your expectations kind of low is also a big one, because a lot of people I've noticed with QHHT, they have very high expectations. They want to learn all about their past lives. What would you recommend for somebody that is new to this sort of thing?
Yeah, I think I totally relate to that as well. Some people actually might be the opposite too, where they don't want to learn those kinds of things. I was that person. The first hypnosis session that I had, I was like pulling up, like going down the Nile on a boat and like getting out to go into the pyramid. And this is the first time I saw Anubis, and I stopped the session. I sat up and said, no, I don't want to look at that stuff, because I thought that I was going crazy if I would even believe that somehow I was connected to ancient Egypt. So I would say when you're going into these hypnosis sessions, just to really think about the main challenges that you have going on in your life. Those moments where you feel the most disempowered or fearful, or where you have relationship issues that are cyclic, happening again and again and again. Go in to have those things solved. And then you'll feel more whole and more integrated and more empowered, versus trying to, and this has been, common in people that in past life therapies of different kinds, of like constantly going into the past lives, trying to find empowerment there. And I think that's what these newer quantum healing methods help with the higher self, to help to integrate that so that people can feel healthy and happy and whole now. So I think go in with less esoteric interest and more personal development interest. And I think the session will be very impactful and useful. And I think overall, I was also thinking of like, what did I want to discuss when I came into this live? Because you and I can kind of go in many places. There's so much information available online right now in regards to, I would call it metaphysics, not necessarily spirituality. ancient civilizations. I know people have started to ask me about Tartaria and things like that, which I haven't had any interest in that. But what I was thinking about in response to those queries is, how is that useful? How is that information, looking it up, how can it be used to make your lives better right now? I think often a lot of the subjects that people look into, especially ancient lost history and stuff like that, it can be really inflammatory. It can really upset people, or it can be a hyper focus that can make people less relatable when they're talking to everyday people. So I was thinking, how is our spiritual research actually making our relationships better with one another? How is it helping us to feel more connected to ourselves and more connected to one another? I see a lot of memes being put out that are also inflammatory and things like that. And if we're really here to assist humanity and to assist the earth into a higher vibration, it starts with our relationships. And starseed light workers also need to be relatable. Sometimes that's, for myself, I've gone back and forth about some of the material that I put out, because I don't know if the everyday person's going to be interested in it. I don't know if it's going to be helpful for them, and I want to be, actually supportive. So it's a question I want to put out there in regards to how we're involving ourselves in our studies and our practices. How is it actually helping? Is it measurable? And does it bring us closer to one another?
Beautifully said. I love that. That's a meme in itself.
Hold it up.
Mic drop. Love
Yeah.
that. So I hear you're going to be on Divinate coming up.
I am. Before I forget this, because I want to make sure I said it, I just want to also thank you for your commitment to showing up every day that you can, and holding space for people to come together to share their interests, to share their work, and to be so relatable. I so feel you out there, and I feel how much love and attention you're putting out there. And I just wanted to say thank you, and to thank you for inviting me on to be in this space and to share what I'm interested in. It really means a lot.
Thank you for saying that. We all just kind of want to make the world a better place than we left it. And it's rare that you find yourself in such a blessed position where you can actually start making the world a better place by your efforts. And so now I'm kind of addicted to it. I'm like, oh, what can I do to make the world better today? I'm trying my best. So thank you very much for noticing.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, Divinate. Well, we have this, it's a new structure. We were doing these journeys. We're creating new regressions each week. And I think those are still available for replay in the paid membership section. But I wanted to switch it up. I wanted to have more interaction and kind of more free flow with it. So it's going to be a Q&A styled meeting. It's called Get Your Shift Together. That's focused. That was a catchy title as well. A little gritty. Something else I realized I wanted to be a little bit more gritty, because sometimes, it's just more relatable. So I'll start with a talk. It'll kind of be like Dharma talk style thing, where maybe 15-20 minutes of a certain topic that I'll discuss, and that'll get everyone warmed up, get some ideas percolating, and then we'll go into like Q&A styled conversations. So I'm really interested in what other people want to hear me talk about, queries that they might have, challenges that they might have. I'm really so interested genuinely in suffering and the issues that people have, and continue to cycle through and continue to rub up against, in a difficult way. Bring those, ask them in the Q&A, and I'm so excited to share. I have a lot of information, a lot of experience in assisting people through struggle, and also very esoteric topics. Everything's on the table. So we'll finish it up with an introduction.
You guys, we love those Ask Anything ones. Perfect.
We'll finish with the meditation, because I think that's also important. It's nice to talk about all these things and get all sensational and stimulated by new ideas. But again, how can we integrate it into this body right now and make it useful for our life and clear? How can we, be clear instruments for this knowledge that we carry? So that's a little bit about how it'll go. We'll see how it actually ends up flowing once everybody joins in. So I think is it 1 o'clock Eastern time.
I was just
It'll be
checking. Yes, it will be at 1 p.m. Eastern. Free live stream. So it'll be free for anybody that's a member. And you've got
Thank you, ma'am.
your insights to elevate your ascension journey. I love that.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm doing it. It'll alternate. Sometimes it'll be just myself. Sometimes it'll be Ron. Sometimes it'll be both of us together. We timed it up. It's only every 2 weeks. That's like our work weekends because we have our group coaching program for self-realization pathway and the evolutionary facilitator pathway, which we're taking applications if anybody wants to join those. So it's my work weekend. We get on and do our live with Divinate, and then we have our group meetings and a few other things that we're doing. So you definitely want to put it in your calendar. I think you can sync that, right, on the Divinate
Yes.
Mighty Network thing so that they're all in your calendar so that you don't forget, you don't miss all the different things that are happening there.
Yes, make sure it's in your calendars, guys, because you don't want to miss out on these opportunities. I've heard so many good things from everybody that has joined your workshops, and I'm so grateful for everything you're doing for this community as well. And the shadow work and the healing aspects, the trauma, all of that stuff, we really need to sort it out. This is like, you know, the crux of the big change that's coming. And so we can't bring any of that shit with us to the new earth. We have to sort it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm a Scorpio. I love the depths and those deep, deep, deep spaces. And I'm definitely no stranger to suffering and all kinds of struggle. I had this feeling in high school when things started to get really intense and chaotic for me. I just kept hearing that I needed to go as, let me use quotes here, as dark as I can at that period of my time, like to really just dive in to not only into my own suffering, but into spaces of suffering. So I was around a lot of people that were suffering as well. So there's nothing that anyone could share with me that's going to make me feel any less of them or lose any love for them or compassion. I'm only going to lean in closer with more curiosity because I really understand suffering deeply. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that on this planet for a long time. I mean, even one lifetime you think you've suffered, but then you look back through the patterns and we realize we've been doing a lot of that. So clearing all that energy out is very important.
And there's this idea to go along with that, you know, because we've talked about parents and things like that. We are our own conditioner. We're the parent. We think we've learned patterns from mom and dad, but the central consciousness of this person has been the one that has, through lifetimes, developed the habits and the patterns and the issues that I'm currently working through. So even more empowering to reparent yourself, to become the loving, wise parent for your inner child and for yourself, to embrace yourself, embrace the suffering, embrace that, the child that's acting out or the wounded child, and bring it on in a little bit closer so that you can feel whole and freed up to assist others into their wholeness as well.
That's so beautiful. So well
Thanks.
said. You are such a shining light in this world, Michael. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And make sure that you guys pick up his books. You guys have got quite a lot of published content and information on your website and a whole bunch. You're just so much knowledge that you're putting out there, and we're deeply grateful for it. We're learning a lot from you.
Thank you so much.
Daniela, you're amazing. Thank you, Daniela. There you go. Cool. Today, speaking of shadow work, we have a wonderful shadow work free live stream today with Laura Pavanelli and Tracy Trimble. That will be at noon. So make sure that you guys are back on Divinate in an hour from now. This work is really important, you guys. You know, we cannot bring our baggage with us to the new earth. We got to sort all that out. So make sure that you set your alarm for an hour from now for the live stream with Laura and Tracy. And on Friday at 1 p.m., you don't want to miss Michael and Ron's Gift Your Shifts Together. I love that. So clever.
Thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure, Michael. Thank you for everything you do. And I look forward to chatting again. I'm going to have to pick up your book, though. I want to read your book and then ask you some questions about it.
Please do. I think you'll really enjoy it. Yeah. Love you and
love
be
you
well.
Guys.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you again, Michael.
Yeah,
bye,
bless
guys.
you.